Kaya Wanju, hello and welcome everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and to pay my respects to elders past and present in the spirit of reconciliation, and to First Nations people everywhere. Thank you so much for joining me for the Calm and Confident Parenting webinar. This one is on positive screen use for tweens, and there's a whole series of webinars on different topics. So do keep an eye out for the different options that you have. I hope today's gives you lots of fresh ideas and thinking for parents when parenting gets hard, which is the tagline of Hand in Hand Parenting. This is the approach that today's workshop is partly based upon, with taking some ideas from Hand in Hand Parenting and also some ideas from the Raising Children website. So that's raisingchildren.net. It's wonderful. The eSafety Commissioner's website here in Australia is another great website and organisation that the ideas are taken from today. This webinar is presented to you thanks to Miralinga Parenting Service. We support parents in the Southwest Metro region of Perth. And my name's Belinda Smith. I am a parenting facilitator with Miralinga. I'd like to thank you, parents, for being here today, whether you're here in person or listening in later. I really appreciate everything it took for you to be here. I know that it can be pretty tricky to find this kind of time in our busy days as parents. So thank you so much for carving this time out. And even more than that, thank you so much for everything you do for your children. You're here thinking about tweens, so possibly you have an 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12-year-old. So you've been doing this for maybe around a decade. That's a lot of work. Thank you so much for everything you do for your family. It's really important work, it's really challenging work, and it's often not seen and acknowledged. So I want to just take a moment to say thank you. So the key messages today, we've got some really simple ideas to get you started thinking about positive screen use for tweens. So to start with, I just want to acknowledge that tweens, the way I'm using it, is 8 to 12-year-olds. A lot of the information in this webinar will be relevant to younger and older children, but specifically we're focusing in on that age group. And our key messages are 6 in total. Safe screen use is the first one, so looking at ways to be safe. Kind screen use is the second one. Number 3 is healthy screen use. Number 4 is work out a plan together, and that togetherness is a big emphasis for hand-in-hand parenting and for any form of connected parenting, and that I've found certainly as a parent is where the magic can happen. Number 5, connection is key, and number 6, support for parents, because we were never meant to do this big job alone. So we're just going over these 6 key messages in this short 20 to 30-minute webinar, and I really encourage you to use some of the links in the PowerPoint that I will send to you and to use some of these resources to go out and explore further. Obviously, a short 20 to 30-minute webinar is sadly not going to solve all the problems and is not going to possibly give you all the answers, but it will be a springboard and a launch pad and a place to start from to think about positive screen use for your tweens. So our first point is around safe screen use. And what I would suggest is that you work together to set up safety controls. And that means that your child is aware of what's happening and why you're doing it, so that you're being really full of integrity, full of clarity and authenticity and transparency, and saying, sweetheart, we need to keep you safe. We're going to set these controls in place to do that. You can go to the link that I've placed here at the eSafety website. So it's esafety.gov.au, and there's parental controls there, a page that has all sorts of information according to the different devices that you might be using in your home. It's important to note that parental controls are not a fail-safe. They are a good place to start, but you need to rely just as much on connection, conversation, and education. And so the second link on this page is around creating a technology agreement. And this link comes from commonsensemedia.org. I love this website. I've relied on it heavily over the years. It's supported by psychologists and other experts who write up reviews of movies and games and give you a suggested age range. And obviously, you're the expert in your family and you get to choose what works for you. But I found it a good starting place because there is no way we as parents can keep up with all of the games, all of the movies, all of the TV shows, all of the devices. So, this is one way to have a starting point to think about whether we want to let our child start using a particular software or a particular device. It's really useful. Um, so you can go to that first link, parental controls, at the eSafety website, and it will talk you through specifically what to click, when to click it, how to set up those safety controls. It's the real nuts and bolts of it. And the technology agreement, the second link, is something that you fill out with your child around how they're going to use technology. And at the bottom, I've also made note that things like YouTube, there are growing supports for parents with these technologies. So, for example, YouTube has supervised accounts. There is, of course, YouTube Kids, which is the obvious choice if you've got really young kids. But once they're getting a bit older, they might be pushing to use the grown-up version, and you get to decide with them whether that's best for you as a family. But also within that grown-up version, there is something called restricted access mode. So you can Google any of these terms to figure out how to apply them. And that's just a real starting point for safe screen use. I know that it can feel quite overwhelming that, we have new devices and things happening and different platforms we're using. So that eSafety website is a great place to start to just get the step-by-step instructions for how to set your child's device up so that it's as safe as it can possibly be. In terms of a family agreement, it's a great idea to talk more than once with your child about these simple safety requirements. So we never give out our personal information is the first one. So never giving out your address, never giving out where you go to school, just letting them know that that's not information to be shared with any human or any robot or anybody outside their circle or that their parent doesn't know about. Secondly, we don't accept friend requests from anyone we don't know in real life. So that's a great line to hold for our tweens. And finally, of course, we never meet up with anyone via the internet. And of course, there may be situations where this does happen, but without mum or dad knowing. So that's the really important point. So just setting up these guidelines and expectations for our children without scaring them, but just letting them know that to keep them safe, these are the rules we need to adhere to together. The second point today is around kind screen use. Now, of course, we've probably all heard about the kinds of challenges that our young people are facing with online bullying. So it's important for us to model, have conversations, and build in connection points so that our child can learn to receive and give kind screen use and to speak up when that's not happening. It's also important to note that while they might face some challenges themselves, they might also make some mistakes. Most tweens and teens will make missteps with what they put out into the world online. They might have an argument with a friend and text them something that's not ideal. They might summarily block a friend on their Messenger Kids or something like that. They simply don't have the capacity to understand what's happening there and the kinds of impacts that might create. So treat mistakes as a learning experience rather than a big drama. So, oh, right, I see this has happened, or I see you've said this. Do you know how that might feel for the other person? So just talking these things through with them and also modeling at all times. Oh gosh, this post on Facebook is making me feel really upset, but I'm not going to post right now because I might say something that I don't really mean or that might be taken the wrong way. I'm going to go and talk to a friend in person first and then come back to it when I'm feeling calmer. That kind of modeling is very, very powerful for our children. Some conversation starters are in the PowerPoint presentation, and I think this is a great thing to do when you're not faced with an immediate issue. So just general conversations around the dinner table. What kind of things would you post on social media, or would you send to a friend in a text that you wouldn't say in person? Is there anything? What kind of things would you say in person that you wouldn't send in a text? Are you okay for your teacher, your principal, your gran to see what you've texted to your friend? And just letting them know that whatever they put out into the world online is accessible to everyone, potentially. Creating a culture of gratitude and kindness at home is another way to encourage kind screen use, and just having those family rituals and traditions like, what are you grateful for today? What do you appreciate about our family? Again, around the dinner table, that's a lovely thing to do. Using screens as a connection point is something that parents often grapple with as their children are coming up to the teen years, trying to find the positives. And this is something I've certainly done, is trying to find some funny memes to send to your child, maybe sending a thank you e-card, things like that, to get them used to ways to use technology as a connection point and something really positive. And there are so many wonderful apps and ways to use technology positively. Things like Smiling Mind, which is a meditation app that your child might enjoy. There's lots and lots out there. It's also interesting to consider consumption versus connection versus creativity. How is your child, or how are you using technology, consuming it? And we all, mindlessly binge Netflix now and again. But how much is that taking up our time? Connection points, how often are we using it to connect with friends in a meaningful, positive way? Or creativity, are we using our phone to capture images or creating movies, that kind of thing? So just thinking about that balance is also really interesting and helpful. Now, the third point is healthy screen use. Hand-in-hand parenting really starts from the perspective that your child is a good human, and they're looking to find confidence and connection, creativity, competence, all the C's. And if they don't find these things in real life, they will look online for them. It's an interesting point to think about, why does it make perfect sense? So, for example, a number of teenagers that I know who turn more and more to their online lives, if we ask ourselves, why does it make perfect sense that they do this? This is an interesting point. They're finding connection with their friends. It's quite a creative pursuit often. They feel really competent and capable in that online world, and they feel really confident, like, I know how to do this. These are feelings that it can be more difficult to access in the real world. So we need to really be a scaffold and a support to them to do that. Working with your child around healthy screen use doesn't mean that you can't set limits. So we're not saying, allow them to do whatever they want to. But what it does mean is that you listen to their views and try to see their perspective and empathize with them even while you're setting limits. Yes, sweetheart, I know you really, really wanted to finish off that level. I'm so sorry. I did give you an extra 5 minutes, and now it's time. I'm really sorry. I know you're so disappointed. We need to stick to these healthy screen use limits. I'm sorry. So just holding that perspective of, I understand, and the limit holds. In terms of healthy screen use, it's useful to think about a kind of an audit of your child's days and life, and thinking about whether your child is sleeping enough, whether they're physically healthy, mentally and emotionally healthy, whether they're engaged with school. Are they connecting socially with family and friends, both online and offline? Do they have a variety of hobbies and interests? Are they doing physical activity every day? Are they having fun and learning while they're using screens? And is the content they're viewing quality? So it's important to note that sometimes, as I said before, we all veer towards a little bit unhealthy screen use, or most people I know have the occasional binge of Netflix. But when we see our children veering in this way, we need to be the calm captain of the ship and offer them support, guidance, and warm limits so that they can come back to balance and healthy screen use. The fourth point, working out a plan together, is important. So the first step might be to ask their thoughts. I've been thinking about how we're using screens and I want to set up an agreement with you. So you might think about that previous technology agreement. And I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think makes sense? What do you think's reasonable? And then just listen without interrupting them or trying to teach them anything. And they might just surprise you. So your family's plan or technology agreement might cover where they can use digital technology. So it might be for your family that you don't use it in the car or you don't use it in bedrooms. Each family will be different. When your child can use digital technology, for example, we don't use them at mealtime, or no screens before school, or no screens until we've contributed to family chores or activities. How your child can use digital technology. For example, you might say, oh, it's fine for you to use YouTube to learn how to do your cartooning, but I'm not that happy with you watching YouTube to learn to do something else. I mean, this is something that each family will decide for themselves. And as I say, all of us maybe need some downtime at some times, and it's all about balance. And finally, second last, how you handle digital technology use for children of different ages. So there might be some games that the older child can only play when the younger sibling's out or has gone to bed. And of course, the most important is how your child can stay safe. So it's a really great idea to talk with them at length about what to do if they come across upsetting or inappropriate content, and also for you to check privacy and location settings and personal data safety and making sure that all of those aspects are covered. There's some great resources for parents around online safety, and I will be sharing these in the email that I send out with this PowerPoint in it. Excuse me. Also for number 4, working out a plan together. This idea of being together is such an important one. So getting moving, playing and imagining with them, supporting them to stop using the screen by connecting first and engaging with them. Screen breaks are so important. So using a timer to finish at the time that you've agreed upon together, because there's such a lot of health issues that come with overuse of screens, like eye strain. And possibly the most important thing is sleep. And as our children get older, this can really be interrupted by screen use. The general consensus, according to science, is that avoiding screens an hour or two before bed is a great idea, and keeping screens out of the bedroom is a great idea. Now, number 5 is connection is key. And this is an idea from hand-in-hand parenting, and also more generally science-backed, evidence-based, and just a brilliant thing to do as a parent is to remember that connection, whatever the problem we're facing, connection provides a key out of that challenging pathway. So pitfalls like cyberbullying, online drama, gaming, social media use, that's problematic, or just general disengagement from real life. The counter or the solution to those pitfalls is always connection with the people who care about them. So I want to encourage you to think about the fact that children want and need to feel connected. It's actually as important to them as food and water, and it's what helps them make good decisions and learn from their experience. When they feel safe and seen, then they know how to play well, they know how to share, they know how to think clearly, and they know how to be fairly rational about their screen use. By focusing on connection rather than, this is a problem and we need to fix it, first moving in with connection, we actually build our child's capacity to have that beautiful internal moral compass, and we strengthen their feelings of self-worth as well. A couple of ideas from hand-in-hand parenting that can help with this feeling of being connected. Special time is the most wonderful, simple tool I know of to build connection in a family. Got a lovely quote here from Laura Markham at Aha Parenting, who says, "Every parent I know who has started doing special time with their child has told me that they see significant changes in their child's behaviour." So Laura Markham is a psychologist who has this website, Aha Parenting, that's a really useful one. Special time, in my experience of the thousands of parents that I've worked with and in my own family, becomes a really beautiful, magical dose of your attention. It becomes a very powerful, delineated space for our children to connect with us, to let us know what's going on in their worlds, and to feel our love and our care. So, what is it? Special time is named, so we name it special time or mummy and me time or whatever they want to call it. It's timed, so we actually use a timer, physically switch the timer on, and this is actually really important. A lot of parents say, "Oh, I already play with my child every day," but timing it is very important for it to function in this special way. Scheduling it is also very important, so they know that they can expect it. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do special time. Every day before we leave the house, we do special time. Every weekday, we do it in the evening before bed. Every Saturday, whatever works for your family. And this is the beautiful thing about special time, is it's eminently flexible. You can just make it work for your family situation. Now, the key point is that it's non-directive, meaning we as parents don't direct the play in any way, and it's completely child-led. And we bring our delight. That's probably the special sauce. The most special thing about special time is our delight. Yay, I'd love to go out and watch you on your scooter. I would love to time you as you run around the block. I would love to go and look for bugs in the rain. I would love to play Lego for the 400th day in a row. So whatever it is that they're wanting to do, we express our delight and we really hold our attention on them. We don't do the laundry, we don't answer the phone. And this is why it's a great idea to start special time, if you've not done it before, with 3 minutes, because it can be quite tricky for us to hold our attention there. We call this a connection vitamin, and it's also important to note that it can bring up some feelings. So in the same way that you might have met with a friend and they ask, "How are you?" and they're really with you and their attention's not anywhere else, you might feel some of the hard stuff that you've been holding on to bubbling up. This can happen with our children too. And so you might find that a very small thing that goes wrong brings about big tears. So we say allow time for feelings, which is another good reason to start with 3 or 5 minutes, so that if there are big feelings when the timer goes off, you can really listen in. Now, in terms of whether to do screens for special time, that's each family's individual choice. Personally, I didn't for years and years and years. I just said no no screens during special time. But as my boys got older, I decided that it was a nice opportunity for me to get involved in their online worlds, and I actually loved it. It was really great to see how amazing they were at Minecraft, for example, and all the things they could build. But it's not something we do all the time, special time. So that's entirely up to you whether you choose to do that or not, but maybe it's worth experimenting with, and I will include an article that I wrote about, do I have to do screens for special time? And that might be helpful if you've got that question. So number 6, all of these wonderful ideas I've been sharing with you really rely on your cup being full. And I don't know about you, but most parents, our cups are not that full. We're pretty overwhelmed and exhausted. We've got a lot going on, many, many balls in the air. So support for parents is absolutely vital. Finding ways to build in self-care is a good first step. Sadly, that feels like another job sometimes, but I really encourage parents to write a list of 10 things that bring you joy and stick it on the fridge. So that accountability of putting it on the fridge and then each day looking and thinking, have I done at least one thing off that list? But Hand in Hand Parenting offers a great tool for parents to help us with those feelings that we carry. And that's called listening partnerships. It can be a wonderful way for us to have our feelings of frustration and powerlessness heard, particularly around screen use. Screens, I really don't know many people that screens don't bring up huge feelings for. For most of us, there's a lot of feelings connected in with our children's screen use. So, listening partnerships give us a space to work through this. They're a regular meeting between two or sometimes more parents, sometimes a group, by phone, online, or in person. And what we do is we trade equal time. So, if I was doing this with another person, we might have 30 minutes all up. So, we'd have 15 minutes each. We'd set the timer for 15 minutes, and then I might talk first and just talk about whatever's on my mind, whatever's hard, maybe what's going well. It's really wonderful to have that space to work through the problems that we're facing as parents. And the other person just listens without advice, without trying to fix it, without interrupting, and holding complete confidentiality, and the thought that this is a good parent doing their best. Then the timer goes off and we swap. And at the end of that, we go back into our lives a little bit more refreshed, a little bit lighter. If that's something that sounds of interest to you, please do reach out to me and I can support you to engage with some of the workshops we offer at Miralinga that give you the experience of listening partnerships, or you might like to look at some of the resources that I share in the email. There's further resources on the PowerPoint, so the Hand in Hand Parenting site. There's lots of social media options, particularly Hand in Hand Parenting's social media. The Tales from the Toolbox podcast that I co-present with a number of instructors in Hand in Hand Parenting around the world. And the Listen book, 5 Simple Tools to Meet Your Everyday Parenting Challenges by Patty Whitfler and Tosha Shaw, is another great one to give you an overview. There's another page of resources for parents and carers, all sorts of great resources on there. So, as I said, this is intended as a bit of a touchstone where you can start from this PowerPoint that I'll share and this webinar that will then lead you out to lots of other places and people and organisations that can support you. So, in summary, today we've looked at ways to help our tweens use screens positively. So specifically, safe screen use, kind screen use, healthy screen use, and working out a plan together. Number 5 was connection is key. And the last point was that support for parents is absolutely vital as we do this important work. I'd be so grateful if you could fill in the poll that's hyperlinked on the final slide in the PowerPoint that I'd send you, and also in the email. That link will be there. Please note that Miralinga offers lots of workshops, lots of webinars like this one, and lots of support for parents as they do this important work. Thank you so much for being here, listening in. I hope you got some fresh ideas and some new thinking to support you to help your tween have a positive relationship with screens. Thank you, everyone.